Money's on right there. But that's going to be fun. I'm excited for that. Hey, tonight we are continuing in our series called Spiral. Last week we started off this series. In this series, we're talking a lot about mental health. But last week we started off by laying a foundation, talking about how we have control over our minds if we can take some practical and simple practices to take our thoughts captive. We talked about how the enemy, there's a war going on for our mind. How the enemy attacks us as Christians a lot of times by using our own mind against us. So we talked about some practical ways we can keep our minds from spiraling out of control, whether it be with anxiety or doubt or fear or shame, or you just can't control your brain. We talked about how we need to focus on fact over fiction, how the truth of God's word and the truth of who God is a weapon we have. We talked about controlling what we can control, not worrying about the other stuff, but just saying, okay, that's out of my control, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to focus on what I can do. And then also using worship and gratitude as a weapon against the enemy. Tonight, we're going to dive deeper, specifically into the topic of anxiety. Now, before I get into it, I want to say this. I know I hit on anxiety a little bit last week. Tonight, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it. Again, same thing as last week. If you feel like, you know what, I don't struggle with anxiety, I still challenge you to listen to what I have to say. Because I'm similar. In high school, I didn't struggle with it at all, and I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily an anxious person, but let me tell you something. There are times that it can attack. I remember when I came for my interview for this job, I spoke at HSM, and that day, I got so anxious, I thought I was having appendicitis. I thought literally this pain in my side because I was so nervous and so anxious about it. So you never know when it's going to strike. But for those of you who are here who deal with anxiety on a day-to-day basis, I think a lot of times people who deal with anxiety feel like they're crazy, or they feel like they're alone, or they feel like no one understands them. Let me go ahead and say this before I get into it. You're not crazy. You are not alone. You are not broken. You have nothing to be ashamed of. This is a real struggle that people go through. I'm glad you're here. I would love to walk alongside you as you go through this. I think your life group leaders would do the same. But I'll also say this. While there is no judgment and you are not crazy, I do believe this. I believe that we serve a God who is bigger and better and stronger than anxiety. And I believe that this doesn't have to be a permanent part of your life. And I know that might, there's maybe some church hurt for some people when you went to a pastor or to a leader and you said, I have anxiety, and they just said, just pray about it and you'll be fine. I'm sorry they said that. It's a real thing and it's hard to get through. And just pray it away isn't always the answer you need to hear. And so that's hopefully not what I'm going to do tonight, but I am here to tell you that I believe anxiety is something you can be set free from and healed from. In fact, real quick story, one of the first students that I ever had at HSM, over 7 years ago when I got here, one of the first students that I ever had, when I met her, she was dealing with crippling anxiety. I'm not talking about she was kind of anxious and every now and then had a panic attack. She was every day dealing with clinical anxiety to one of the worst cases I had ever seen at that point. She was dealing with self-harm every single day. It locked her up. She was so nervous about everything. It even led to depression in her life. She was so anxious that it changed her so much that she became deeply depressed. And she never believed she'd get over it. Every time we met, we'd walk through certain things. She would just say, I'll never get over this. This is just who I am, and I hate it. Let me tell you something. It took a lot of work, a lot of practice. But first of all, I remember the first big thing that I remember her doing. She texted me. She said, today is 1 year since the last time that I ever harmed myself. I've never hurt myself again since 1 year ago today. And I remember that being such a cool day for her. Now she's several years free from that. Also, now she graduated high school. She moved halfway across the country to attend college. She graduated from college. She's getting a job now. She's getting married now. These are all things that she once thought was never possible for her. I remember sitting down with her and her telling me, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to go to college. I'm too anxious. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get married. No one's going to like me like this. And now she's doing all this stuff because God healed her and set her free. And so I'm here to tell you, anxiety is real and it's hard, but it does not have to be something that's permanent in your life. And so tonight I want to go through a few things that might help you with that. And I'm going to take two approaches tonight. I'm going to take two approaches. The first one is really important. The first approach for you to take, if you're here and you're dealing with anxiety, the first approach is really important. But I'll go ahead and say this. The second approach is by far the most important. Don't ignore the first approach. The first approach is going to help you. In fact, that's the difference. The first approach is going to help you. It's practical. It's something you can do when you're having an anxiety attack or struggling with stress or worry. It's going to help you. But the second approach that I'm going to give you tonight is going to be the one that will set you free and heal you. So both are helpful. If you just want something that might help you in the moment, the first approach is great. But if you want to be fully healed and transformed and set free, it's the second approach that's going to do that. Okay? Does that make sense? Y'all with me on that? So the first approach is the how. How do I work through this anxiety? How do I deal with anxiety? How do I get through an anxiety attack? And by the way, this is a really, really common question. Super common. Whenever we do Q&As at these high schools, a lot of people ask about anxiety. Whenever I meet with students, a lot of people ask about anxiety. It's a really common question. And a lot of people say this. They say, how do I get through it? And by the way, I think one of the reasons so many people ask this is because anxiety has been on a rise ever since 2012. If you look at all the studies of anxiety over the years, 2012, there was a huge spike. It wasn't just like a gradual rise in anxiety. 2012 hit, and there was a spike in anxiety, and it's gone up every single year since then. And if you're wondering what happened in 2012, there was a huge shift in social media. Social media existed before 2012, but up until 2012, social media was mainly kind of just an online experience. It was Facebook. It was you get on, you post a picture from your family vacation, you update your dating status from it's complicated to single or whatever it is. And even Instagram, when I first downloaded Instagram, there was no stories, there was no reels, there was no DMs. It was literally you post a picture. Like that was it. And really the craziest thing about Instagram when I got it in high school was a hashtag. And I was like, what's a hashtag? And I still didn't understand it, right? But that's what social media was. Then 2012 hit and it changed to this online, personal, just you are engulfed in this experience, and it's all catered to you and what you like, and it just kind of transformed people. And here's what I want you to know about this. I mentioned this last week, but I'm going to say it again tonight. I am not here in this series to tell you that social media is evil. I'm not trying to convince you to delete all social media or to trade in your smartphone for a flip phone, although I think that would be awesome. I'm not here to say that or do that, okay? But I do believe that social media can play a role in anxiety. And the proof is in the statistics that since 2012, anxiety has spiked in our world. And here's, I think, why that happens. First of all, you think about the noise that social media creates in our life. It has replaced all the peace and quiet in our life. You're sitting in the car, you're scrolling. You're laying in bed, you're scrolling. You're sitting in class, you're scrolling. You have an AirPod in, listening to something, and you're scrolling. I've been talking to students, and they, mid-conversation, will get out their phone and start scrolling. It's like there is no peace and quiet anymore. Social media is just so much noise and chaos in our life, and it's really our brain doesn't know how to handle boredom anymore. Boredom, I believe, is a gift to be creative, to explore, to have fun, to be personal, and social media has taken it away. It's just noise. Again, I'm not telling you it's all evil, but man, it's created a lot of noise. The second thing, I believe it's created this thing where it makes your thoughts, not only is it noise, it makes your thoughts race. Spiral, if you will. Think about it like this. I got this little toy car. This is my daughter's car that I bought her that she never plays with, so kind of hurts a little bit, but whatever. But this little toy, it reminds me of what our brain does when you're on social media. It's like not only is there so much noise, there's really no peace anymore. Just when I wind this car up, it just gets wound up and it goes faster and faster and it speeds up. Listen to this. Every time you're on social media, that's what our brain does. It winds up. It's dopamine hit after dopamine hit. It's reel after reel. It's Snapchat after Snapchat. It's alert after alert. It's, I gotta, streaks. I gotta get on today. I can't be off my phone today. Whatever, it's just, your mind is racing all the time. And the last thing I think what social media does, and this one to me is the big one, is we use social media as numbing medicine or as procrastination. What happens is we use social media to escape responsibility in our life. I'm guilty of this when I procrastinate all the time, right? I have homework that I need to do right now, but I don't want to do it, so I'm going to put that here and scroll on social media for a little bit. I need to go clean my room, but I really don't want to do that, so I'm just going to put it aside and scroll for a little bit. I really, really need to get ready for work, but I'm just going to scroll for a few more minutes. I know I made a goal to read my Bible every day, but just 10 minutes won't hurt. And we just kind of put this stuff to the side and we start stacking it up. Because that stuff makes us anxious, so I'm going to do this. And then what happens is you put your phone down and you look, and instead of it being one or two things we have to do, it started to pile up. So what do? You go back to social media and you want to put that stuff away. So responsibilities away. I got to make a phone call. I got to go have this conversation with my girlfriend that I don't want to have. And we start, exactly, and then that starts to happen. where it's just we are putting it to the side, we're ignoring it, and then we go back and it's either a pile too big for us to deal with or it has just completely collapsed and created even more anxiety in our life. And that's why I'm not here to tell you that social media is evil, but I am here to tell you that I think it does stuff to us that increases our anxiety. Maybe we're a little bit anxious and social media makes us really anxious. Maybe we have anxious thoughts already and then our unhealthy habits, whether it be addiction or social media or sin or numbing medicine. For some people, it's social media. Some people, it's drugs, it's alcohol, it's porn. It's I don't know what it is, but it makes it worse. And so the first approach that I believe we need to take if we want to deal with, okay, how? How can I deal with anxiety? I got a few things. I got this from a guy named Dr. David Smith. He's a psychologist here in Corona. A few years ago, we actually had him at HSM. I went to him during COVID when life was really tough for me, and I hated ministry during COVID, and I was stuck indoors with roommates that I didn't know and living across the country from my family, and I just hated it. I went to him, and he's an expert on it. And these are some things that he has given us that says, hey, if you're dealing with anxiety, these are some simple, practical hows. How do I deal with an anxiety attack, or how do I deal with anxiety? Here's a few things. And the first one kind of goes into what I was just saying about social media. The first one is this. You ready? Slow down. This is whether you have an anxiety attack or this is just in general. If you are dealing with anxiety continuously, slow down. Learn to have healthy habits with your phone. I'm not telling you to delete social media, but maybe start having healthier habits. Right now, my wife and I, we're working on that. We have this app or this thing that it's called a brick. We bought it. We got it in the mail. It's a physical little plastic. Does anyone know what the brick is? Anyone use that? A couple of you guys. Okay. It's literally a plastic like brick, and we put it on our fridge. And what it is I can lock my phone, and you can decide what apps you want locked. For me, it's just social media right now. But when I turn it on my phone, it is locked. And I cannot unlock my phone until I physically touch my phone to that brick that's on our fridge. So here's the thing. If I go to work and my phone is locked up, there's no ignore for 15 minutes. There's no, ignore for the day. There's no loophole around it. Literally, if I try to unlock my phone, it just says one thing. It says, go back to living. That's what it says. And so my wife and I, we're trying to be better with that because we're like, hey, honestly, I need social media for my job. We like social media to be able to check in on my family back home and post pictures about Luca, but let's slow down a little bit and get off our phones more. Maybe it's, hey, I'm going to get off my phone before I go to bed. I'm going to read a book, or I'm just going to lay down and talk to the Lord. Maybe it's I'm going to get up 30 minutes earlier tomorrow and have a slow morning. I did that this morning because I knew I was going to say it to you guys, so this morning I did it. I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning. I went down. I made a cup of coffee. I sat down on my couch. I put on worship music. I read my Bible. I just sat there. When my wife got up to go to the gym this morning, we talked for like 10 minutes. I just sat there. I prayed for my daughter. I waited till she woke up. When she woke up, she and I went to the park. Like it just took a slower morning, and it's so refreshing. It's slow down. I don't know what it is in your life that you need to do, but slow down. The second thing is to control your breathing. And this one sounds like, okay, you must not know what anxiety attack is like because breathing is really hard. You're right. That's why it's so important. This, by the way, of all these that I'm giving you, this is the one that is most agreed on in psychology. Almost every psychologist will tell you this. This is, by the way, so effective. This is what they train people to do in special forces. In the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets, this is what they train people to do. When you are in a dire situation, when bullets are flying from every direction, when your best friend just died next to you, when your leg is broken, when you can't think straight, they train them to do one thing: control your breathing. In fact, there's a practice that's they call it square breathing. I don't know if you've ever heard this, and it's because they visualize it a little bit, but I'm going to show you how to do it. They say, okay, if you're having an anxiety attack, you're dealing with anxiety, whatever it is, sit down somewhere that you can control, okay, get comfortable for a second, and what you do is you take a deep, slow breath in, hold it for 4 seconds. Deep breath out, hold it for 4 seconds, and so on and so forth. And they call it square breathing because if you think about it visually, it makes a square. Breathe in slow, hold your breath. Breathe out slow, hold your breath. Okay, let's try it. I'm gonna show you how to do it right here. Okay, you ready? Okay, I know that was awkward, right? silent, it's awkward. People are watching me sit in a chair and breathe. But that's the point, is slow down for a second. Control your breath. You're like, it's really hard. I know. That's why it's so important. I know someone who has anxiety. When they get anxious, they start scratching themselves. They don't even realize they're doing it until later their arms are all scraped up. And they've practiced this. They sit down, they'll hold the chair so they don't scratch themselves, and they'll focus on their breathing. It works. Okay? And the last one, I'll say this before we get to the second approach, is really important. Get to work. Get to work. And I know this is really hard, but here's what Dr. Dave said. I've actually heard several other people say this. At its core level, anxiety is actually a good thing. I'm not saying that the anxiety that we have, where it's an anxiety attack and where it hurts us, is good. I'm saying that at the smallest level, anxiety is actually your body's way of saying, hey, something's out of whack. We need to do something. And so when you have an anxiety attack, what I want you to do is slow down, catch your breath, pray, talk to the Lord, and then say, what do I need to do right now? If you're having an anxiety attack because you're in a crowd, maybe it's okay. Hey, you know what? I need to sit down, catch my breath, focus on the fact that I'm okay, I'm safe, and the chaos around me doesn't affect me. Maybe it's, hey, I'm anxious because I've been ignoring my homework. So I'm going to catch my breath, I'm going to slow down, I'm going to put my phone away. Once I get to a better state, I'm going to get my homework out and I'm going to do it. Maybe it's, hey, I'm anxious because I really need to have this conversation with my friend, but I'm really nervous about how it's going to go, so I'm going to slow down, I'm going to catch my breath, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to have this conversation. Anxiety is our body's way of saying, hey, we need to do something, so go do it. Does that make sense? There's several other things that you can do. I encourage you to go and do some research on your own. I mentioned this last week. If you need to see a professional, go see a professional. If you need to get medicated and you want advice about that, come and talk to me. I'll have a conversation with you about it. I'm actually medicated. I don't know that it's for everyone, but I also don't believe it's completely evil. And if you're considering that, come and talk to me. I'd be happy to give you my thoughts on it. But do something. Don't just sit there and let anxiety ruin your life. Slow down, catch your breath, obviously take a spiritual approach, which we'll do in a second, and then do something about it. Does that make sense? Okay, now let's get on to the second approach. And this is the one that I said, the first one helps and it's important, but this one is the one that will set you free, that will heal you. Most people, if not everybody, asks, how can I get through anxiety? Ready for this? The more important question isn't how can I get through anxiety, it's who do I need to rely on to get through anxiety. It's not how, it's who. It's who do I need to rely on to get anxiety. Again, I know that I want to be sensitive here because I don't want to just be the guy that says, oh, you're a Christian, pray about it and it'll go away. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying this is that we serve a God who's bigger and better and stronger and mightier than anxiety. And if you want to be healed and set free from it, yes, we can take a practical approach, but first of all, we've got to take a spiritual approach. I believe the same thing's true about addiction. Set barriers, get rid of the stuff that you're addicted to, get accountability, but first and foremost, take a spiritual approach to it. Everything, whatever it is, I believe spiritual approach is what's most important. And see, here's I think the problem is this, is a lot of people use Jesus as an accessory in their life. Jesus is not an accessory, he's king. In fact, I'll say this, Jesus is either your entire life or he's not in your life. I don't believe there's an in-between. Too many people come to church and they make Jesus a part of their life. That's not who Jesus is. Jesus is either everything or he's nothing. That's why he even said he doesn't like lukewarm Christians. He'd rather us be hot or cold, nothing in between. And too many people use Jesus like an accessory, like a genie in a lamp. I go to him when I need him. I pray to him before meals, and that's it. You want to know, I believe the key to whatever it is you're pursuing, but in this case, being healed and set free from anxiety, make Jesus everything in your life. I'm going to go ahead and preface by this. Just so you know, hear my heart, in case anyone's watching this and thinking this. For the rest of my message, I'm plagiarizing a lot of it. Okay, I'm plagiarizing a lot of it. I'm stealing it from a guy named Louis Giglio. If you don't know who Louis Giglio is, he's a pastor in Atlanta. He's a great guy. I've met him before. He's awesome, and he's very successful, and he's way better at his job than I am. And the reason I'm taking a lot of his content is not because I'm lazy and because I didn't want to write a message tonight. It's because he's an expert on it, and I want an expert's advice. He went through this stuff. He dealt with clinical anxiety. He went through some really dark seasons in his life, and he's been set free and healed from it. He's even written a book about it. So I'm like, I'm going to go to him. I watched several sermons. I read several studies, and I got a lot of information. But honestly, I was like, this guy, he's got it down. So it's not all word for word his stuff, but I just want you to know if you hear my message and you're like, I've heard that before, it's because you probably have. It's Louis Giglio's message, okay? But I just wanted to preface with that because it's really good. But I'm going to start tonight, the second approach, by saying this. David was really, 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 really good at conquering anxiety by focusing on God more than anything else. Last week I read through Psalms 23, and I'm going to read through it again in just a moment. Psalms 23 is a really, really famous and popular scripture, and David wrote it. But I want to give you some context in when David wrote this scripture. If you don't know who David is, it's King David. It's the guy who fought Goliath and killed him. It's the guy who became the king in Israel, and ultimately his bloodline would lead to Jesus. And he did some great things. He also did some awful things because he's human. But he wrote Psalms 23 before he was ever king. In fact, he wrote Psalms 23 while he was probably a shepherd boy. We don't know exactly when he wrote it, but we know that he was probably a shepherd, and he might have been around your age, maybe a little bit older, maybe even a little bit younger, but he was a shepherd boy. And you might be like, okay, well, shepherd, that doesn't sound like that crazy of a job. It's easy to write about peace when you're out in a field hanging out with some sheep. Like, no big deal. That sounds fun. Right? Give me a JLab speaker and I'm out there. That's awesome, right? I want you to think about the stuff that David went through. David, this was not a calm, easy, peaceful job. David was out there. We actually know for a fact that before he ever fought Goliath, he killed a bear, he killed a lion, he fought off wolves, he fought off any predator that came and tried to kill his sheep. We know that he was out there having to climb up and down this crazy terrain, up and down cliffs, and he's in the desert where it's hot. Probably days that he ran out of water, probably days that he got lost in the wilderness. There were days that he would have to go out into lightning storms and hurricane-force winds to find a sheep that was lost, save a sheep from flash floods. He was faced danger of drowning, of starvation, of thirst, of being eaten alive by a stinging lion. Like, I don't know about you, but none of us are facing that danger going to Corona High School. I don't think. You never know. But the point that I'm trying to say is that when David wrote this, he was going through a crazy season. And it's a season around the age that you guys were in. And listen to what he wrote in Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Listen to this. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I dwell within the house of the Lord forever. That's the entire chapter, Psalms 23. I love Psalms 23. David wrote this while he's a shepherd facing these crazy dangers. And I love what David is doing because he's doing exactly what I'm saying right now is that when you're facing anxiety or fear or danger or chaos or worry, whatever it is in your life, what's the answer? Yes, there's practical things we can do, but first and foremost, it's not what I can do or how I can go over that. It's who I can rely on. What does he say? He says, even though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Not because I can do this, not because God gave me a plan, not because God told me what's going to happen, not because God took me out of it. Why? Because God's with me. I will fear no evil because you are with me. You want to know what I believe the first and most important step to getting over anxiety? It's focusing on the fact that God is with you. When I was a kid, my family would always go up to the mountains for vacation, like once or twice a year. And we loved it. It was so much fun. And we'd go up, and every year we'd go to a cabin, and we'd always have fires outside. There'd be a fire pit. We'd always have fires. And my chore on vacation was always to get the firewood. But this one particular trip, I remember the firewood wasn't like attached to the house. It was in this little shack like 50 yards away from the house. But here's the problem. That trip, for some reason, I was young. I might not have even been in junior high yet. But I remember that trip, for some reason, I was really scared of bears. I'd never been scared of bears before. But I think someone had told me something about like, hey, bears can smell you from like 10 miles away and they eat little children at night. Like, I don't remember what I heard, but I remember I was convinced I was going to die by a bear that trip. And so I remember that night, or that afternoon, I knew we were going to have a fire that night, so I went out during the day to get firewood so that night I wouldn't have to. That night, my family were having a fire, we're hanging out, having a good time, but we ran out of firewood. So my dad says, hey, buddy, I need you to go get more firewood. Nope. I was terrified. So I remember going out, getting the little, like, satchel thing that you carry firewood in. I don't know what it's called. And I walked out, like, a couple steps, and I remember just going back. And I'm like, I can't do it. And I'm crying. I'm like, Dad, please, I don't want to do it. I can't. A bear is going to eat me. And so I remember my dad just said, all right, buddy, I'll go with you, but you're going to do this. And so we walked out together. Can I tell you something? I wasn't scared anymore. And maybe even I was a little bit scared, but I remember just hiding behind my dad. And every noise and everything that I heard and saw, I was like, Dad, Dad. But I remember my fear melted away. Why? It wasn't because all of a sudden I was bigger and stronger than a bear. It wasn't because my dad gave me a glimpse of the future and said, hey, you're going to be fine. It wasn't because my dad pulled out a bear tracker on his phone and said, look, there's none in our area. Why? It's because my dad was with me. As Christians, we have something that we can believe in and say that the world doesn't. It's this: in our worst moments, when we're struggling with anxiety or fear, we can say, I'm really scared, but I'm going to be okay. My dad's with me. My Father's with me. My God's with me. My God's got me. David walks through the valley of the shadow of death, but he fears no evil. Why? Because God's with him. His rod and his staff protects him. As Christians, you want to know the key to conquering anxiety in your worst moments, in your anxiety attacks. Take a moment, do the breathing stuff, slow down, but take a moment, remember, like, God, I know you're with me. Thank you for being with me. There's a few ways you can do that to make it simpler. If you're like, okay, but how do I do that? Here's the first one. See Jesus as he is. See Jesus as he is. This kind of plays into what we talked about last week. Last week we talked about the power of truth, right? It's funny, I didn't even know I was going to be preaching this message this week when I preached on it, but it lines up perfectly. Last week we talked about how truth is so important because often our anxiety or our fear or worry gets caught up in believing stuff that's not true or hasn't even happened yet. In the same way, you want to know how you can calm yourself down and say, God, I want to remember that you're with me, is see who Jesus is. A lot of people believe that Jesus is this distant God who we never hear from, or maybe that he's a fairy tale, or it's like, I don't really know, but I know that my grandma has a picture of Jesus up on the wall, and he's a lot whiter than I thought he'd ever look, right? It's like, so you know, Jesus wasn't white, so just so you know. But I want you to start getting a more realistic picture of who Jesus is. That's what David writes in Psalm 23. He says, the Lord is my shepherd. He knows what a shepherd does. A shepherd protects and fights off the animals, corrals the sheep when they run off, leads them to still waters. He says, that's what the Lord does for me. The Lord protects me. The Lord provides for me. The Lord is with me. John 10, Jesus confirmed that. He says, I am the good shepherd. Maybe you need to memorize scripture to remind yourself of the truth. John 10, 27 30. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I give them eternal life, and no one can snatch them out of my hand. My Father who's given me is greater than all, and no one can snatch them out of my hand. My Father and I are one. That verse isn't on the screen. It's not in my notes. The reason is because when I was in college, and I was in a dark moment, and I was dealing with fear and worry about my future, you know what I did is I memorized John 10, 27 30, so that I could remind myself in the moment, Jesus has got me. He knows me, and I know him, and I follow him, and he's going to protect me, and no one can snatch him out of his hands. John 10 says that he's the good shepherd. John 1 says that he's the creator of the universe. Why am I worried about tomorrow when my God is the creator of everything around me? Why am I worried about what's going to happen in the future when my God is the beginning and the end? And he already knows what's going to happen. And he says that he has a plan for me and that he'll provide for me and that he'll protect me. Hebrews 4 says that he's the source of my rest and my peace. Philippians 4 says that he's my provider. The point is this, is you want to focus on the Lord. I know it's really hard to do sometimes, but the first step is to remind yourself of who Jesus is. The second step, set Jesus before you. Psalm 16:8, this is another psalm that David wrote. I have set the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. I love that. I have set the Lord before me. Why? He's not saying that I'm ignoring all the other stuff going on. He's saying that I've chosen to focus on what's bigger and better. Think about the story of David and Goliath. David walks up. All the Israelite soldiers, they're terrified of him because he's huge and he's never lost a battle. And he carries a spear that's heavier than me. And he's like, what? How am I supposed to fight this guy? That's crazy. You know what David does? David comes along and he says this. He goes, you know what? All these people are so terrified of how big you are. I'm just focused on how big my God is compared to you. Think about that. I'm so focused on how big Goliath is. David says, no, I'm not focused on how big you are. I'm focused on how big my God is. What if that were our view? Oh, but sorry, you have no idea how stressed I am. I've got all this stuff on my plate and all this worry and all this sin and all this struggle. What if we focused instead and said, okay, that stuff might be big. This pile of anxiety might be big, but my God is bigger. My God is better. It's not ignoring the stuff you need to be anxious about. It's setting your gaze upon Jesus because he's bigger. Does that make sense? God's got my back. What if you just reminded yourself that? God's with me. God's got my back. The third thing, you ready for this? This is a practical one, but it's so important. Say to him, you're my God. Again, last week we talked about the importance of the truth and declaring the truth. What if in that moment, you remembered who Jesus was? He's my provider. He's my protector. He's the Almighty. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. And you said, all right, God, I'm going to focus on you. And you know what, God? You are my God. Isaiah 25:1 says, O Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you. I will praise your name, for you have done wonderful things. You are my God. Your plans are formed of old, faithful and sure. You are my God. What if in the moment of anxiety, we sat down, we caught our breath, and we said, God, I believe that you are the provider. I believe that you are the healer. I believe that you are the source of my peace, and you are my God, my rock, my salvation. I need you. Even when you don't feel like it's true, you state it because you know it's true. Sometimes our emotions and our fears lie to us, but truth can cut right through it. My wife says that all the time. Whether we've had an argument or whatever it is, she say, you know that I love you, right? That's so powerful because I've never doubted that, but what if one day I'm not feeling it? I feel like maybe my wife doesn't love me and I'm starting to doubt it, and then I hear her say, hey, I love you. The same way, what if we're not feeling it? We're like, I just don't know. Am I really a Christian? Am I not? Whatever. And the enemy's getting in your head and you say, no, God, you are my God. And you remind yourself of the truth. And then the last one is this, and this one again ties into what I said last week, but I'm going to read a quote before I give you this point. This is a quote from Louis Giglio. Worship is the most powerful antidepressant in the universe. And that's the fourth thing we got to do, sing the praises of the one who's greater. The one who's greater than my anxiety, the one who's greater than my breakup, the one who's greater than my addiction, the one who's greater than my panic attack, the one who's greater than anything that I'm facing, I'm going to worship him. Worship is the most powerful antidepressant in the universe. You ready for this? The antidote to fear is not courage, it's faith. David said, even though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, not because I can do this, but because you're with me. And he starts to worship him. It's not about me bulking up. It's about me worshiping the guy who's already bigger and stronger than anyone that I'll ever face. It's not me saying I can do it. It's me saying I'm worshiping the God who's already done it. You ready for this? It's a hard conversation, but I'm going to go ahead and have it as I'm closing out. Let's say worst case scenario, whatever you're anxious about. Worst case scenario, I die. Right? Guess what? I'm going to heaven. I'm going to heaven. I don't want to die. But you ready? If my biggest anxiety in life is that I'm going to die, okay, my God's already beaten that. I get to go to heaven. If my biggest anxiety is that my daughter dies, that is going to be a really, 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 really bad day. And in the name of Jesus, it won't happen. But what if it happens? I'll see my daughter in heaven. I'm going to be okay. It's going to be hard. I'm going to cry a lot. And it's not going to happen in the name of Jesus. But what if worst case scenario, we still remind ourselves, hey, my God's already beaten it. My God, he's taken away hell in my life. I get to go to heaven. Why am I anxious about this thing when my God is already bigger and better and stronger and he's defeated death itself? Worship is the most powerful antidote. I'm going to end with a quick story and then I'll close out. In high school, every year I went to a camp in the Ozark Mountains in Missouri. This camp was awesome. I loved it. And it was in the middle of nowhere. Literally, you picture the middle of nowhere. This is even more in the middle of nowhere. And after my senior year of high school, I was still young enough to be a camper, but I would have been the oldest camper. I was too young to be a counselor. So instead, I did what they call the CIT program. It's the Counselor and Training Program. And basically, I went for the entire summer, and basically my job was me and these 12 other dudes, and we were all going to college the next year, and our job was pretty much like maintenance. It's pretty much just like cleaning up and setting up and tearing down the camp. Every morning, I remember my job was to get up before the sun came up, and I would go Zamboni the basketball courts. It was a sports camp. It was like dedicated for people who want to play sports in college. So I'd go and I'd Zamboni the basketball court every morning. We'd go and set up the games and the events and all that stuff. If there was something wrong on the docks, we'd go fix the boats, or we'd run gasoline if something ran out of gas, whatever it is. If there was a truck stuck in the mud, we'd go get it out. It was a really fun job. But one night, I remember we had this tradition at night where basically they split up all the guys and all the girls into these different teams, and they would have these fires in the middle of the woods with their team. And they would do chants, and then they would get a game plan going, and they'd get hyped up, and then they'd go and play. We called it war ball. It was basically dodgeball, but more intense. But they would have these fires literally in the middle of the woods in the Ozark Mountains. And my job was to go and light the fire, but I had to time it right where the fire didn't burn out before the people got there. And so I went an hour before the campers got to this fire, and I just sat there, and I couldn't light the fire yet. I had to just sit there. Let me tell you something. I'm a pretty brave guy. I love outside. I love the outdoors. But sitting by yourself for about an hour in pitch black dark in the middle of the Ozark Mountains was terrifying. Like I've seen, there are bears there. We thought they were Black Panthers, but turns out they're not. But anyway, there's predators there. And I'm sitting in the middle of the woods by myself. There's no cell service. If I yell, no one's going to hear me. They're going to find my body in about an hour when they show up. And I'm just sitting there and I'm terrified. And I don't know what brought this to my head, but I remember I was praying. I said, God, I'm scared. What should I do? And I remember I just started singing. I just started saying, my God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. I know I have a terrible voice, but I remember doing that. And I probably sounded insane, but I'm sitting in the middle of the woods. And I just started singing it over and over again. My God is an awesome God, he reigns. And I just started singing it. And guess what? As I did it, I kind of just stopped being scared. Out of nowhere, I realized the time had passed by. I was singing that, and then I started singing, Oh, How He Loves Us. And I just started singing these songs, and out of nowhere, the people started coming through the woods, and I lit the fire, and I was great. Now, I'm not telling you that singing a worship song is automatically going to get you out of your anxiety attack, but I am telling you that I believe that worship is the biggest antidote that you can have. And if you want to conquer your anxiety, be set free and be healed from it, it's not just about how, it's about who. And so tonight, to end, I want to give you a chance tonight to receive the who, to receive the God who is bigger and stronger and mightier than any anxiety, any fear, any worry, any trial you'll ever face. Our God is bigger and better than it. If you're already a Christian, you have the answers. It's just to rely on him. But if you're here and you're not, here's the good news. All you have to do is receive it. It's not about coming to church so many times. It's not about how many points you earn for the HSM Cup. Jesus says, hey, if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord, you'll be saved. So I want to give you a chance to do that tonight. So I'm going to ask everyone to bow their heads and close their eyes. No one's looking around. And if you're here tonight, and you're here and you're like, you know what? I need Jesus. I've tried all the hows. I've tried all the other stuff. I've tried medication. I've tried therapy. I've tried the breathing stuff, but it's not enough. I need Jesus. Maybe you're here and it's not anxiety. Maybe it's addiction. You're like, I need freedom from that. It's Jesus. Maybe you're here and you're just like, I'm missing something in my life. It's Jesus. If you're ready tonight to say yes to him, I want you to say a prayer with me. You can say it out loud. You can say it under your breath. You can say it in your heart. But